2,000 years ago, if you ask someone, excuse me, where is Capernaum? He will have absolutely no clue what you're talking about. In fact, he will ask his friends, do you understand what this person wants? Or he will say, what are you talking about, Willis?
What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about?
American television is doing it under.
Who you be? Who you be? On your knees.
But one thing is for sure, the name Capernaum is not a Hebrew name. It is the corruption of, I would say this, it started with the Greek, later on with the Latin, and ended up in the English. But it's definitely not what it means. The name was Kfar Nahum, the village of Nahum. Nahum's village. It's basically named after someone called Nahum. We're not sure if it's Nahum the prophet or some very important person who was maybe the founder of the village in the 1st century BC. But one thing is for sure, the meaning of the word or the name Nahum is comfort. Comforter, comfort. And that's what Pastor Bill referred to on the mountain. The headquarters of Messiah right here is in the village of the one who brings peace and comfort. Isn't that amazing? Now, this is a place, a very interesting place, on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. And it's a very unique location. Why is it so unique? Because not only that we are right on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, we are next to the most important trade route in the area of those days. We're talking about what road? The Via Maris, the way of the sea. It's a major trade route that started in Egypt, went along the coast of the Mediterranean. At a certain point, Mount Carmel was just a barrier on its way to the north, and therefore the Via Maris was split into 3 major valleys, connecting it from the coast to the Jezreel Valley, and from the Jezreel Valley splitting to east, northeast, and north. And the one that went to the northeast came through the Valley of the Doves, underneath Mount Arbel, and continued all the way here, and then went up towards Damascus, the road to Damascus. And it's interesting because if you find yourself right here, between the most important trade route and the fertile sea, there is absolutely no reason for you not to do well financially. However, if you understand world history as far as economy, you understand that in those days it was 90 to almost 95% low class, and then the high class, the upper class, those people who owned most of the land and most of the property, about 5 to 10%. And so you have very well-to-do town, but who made most of the money? 5 to 10% of the people, where everyone else worked for them. You understand that? So the wealth was not really spreading all over. You understand? And that's why most of the wealth could only be displayed in a city or a village if those wealthy people donated something to the village. It's very interesting because up until today in the Jewish mindset, for example, a synagogue, it's all about donations. Every little tiny object in the synagogue was donated by someone to someone. I mean, you enter today into a synagogue, you see even a light bulb has a name of someone on it because it was donated by that person. And we, even here in this village, found one column, and we see in the Hebrew language that this column was made by John, the son of Alphaeus, son of Zebedee, made be for him a blessing. That alone showed me that this is a synagogue. It's very interesting. Okay, now, having said that, remember, the prophet Isaiah gave us a clear indication of where the headquarters of Messiah's ministry is going to be. Are you going to teach about that? Of Isaiah?
No.
Okay, good. So, the prophet Isaiah says this. Watch this. The land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. So what part of the lake are we talking about? West or east? West, exactly. The Galilee or the Golan? The Galilee, exactly. By the sea. Galilee of the Gentiles, by the way of the sea, Via Maris. The people who sat in darkness have seen great light, and upon those who sat in the valley of shadow of death, light has dawned. So you understand that the only town in this whole area that fulfills all this description, by the sea, by the way of the sea, on this side of the river, is Capernaum. So there's absolutely no doubt that when Isaiah was speaking of Messiah's future ministry, where he brings light and comfort to this dark place, spiritually dark, because the beauty is all over, then of course Isaiah is not talking about any other town or village but this place. Capernaum, no doubt, a typical Jewish village/town of those days. When we look around here, we see that the size is the size of a village. But I want to make very clear, if you only remove those walls, you will find out that Capernaum was at least 3, if not 5 times the size of what we see here. It was way bigger. It took a much bigger portion of the shoreline than we can imagine now. We found much more further over there and even over there. In fact, right next to that little tapka, where we just boarded our bus, it's already considered Capernaum Nature Reserve. From that portion all the way up here. A lot of people lived here. The type of settlement, the way they lived was very interesting and typical to the first century. We call it insula-style village. The father is the head figure of the family. His sons are getting married, they build their houses around the father. Their sons build their houses around their father. And you get clusters of families, of clans. And that creates what we call insula-style village. The village is divided to clusters where every cluster will have its own family. Interesting. We're going to see that very soon. The village, of course, is a regular village, but what makes it Jewish is not the houses, it's the synagogue. Now, the synagogue, what makes a synagogue as far as the look? Nothing. When you look from outside, a synagogue will look like either a church, a courthouse, pagan shrine. All those buildings were built in the same architectural type of building, and it's called basilica. Basilica today is more associated with churches, but it's not true. I mean, it started as a type of architectural shape of building, which has a main aisle and 2 naves on the side. Main nave and 2 aisles on the side, where the roof itself is supported by columns inside the building. You understand? That creates like 2 small roofs, and then 2 more walls, and then a big roof. So this shape of building is basilica. And when you look from outside, all buildings, public buildings, look the same. You have to look in the inside to find out what this building is all about. The Jewish people, at least here, did not want to associate themselves much with the pagan world around. Thus, they decorated the synagogue with a lot of motifs from nature and not any molded or graven images. You understand that? Okay. Turn around and look at this particular insula. As you can see, there are walls all around, and then it's all inside divided to subdivision, and basically these are all residential quarters. This entire section right here is of one clan, of one family. The sons, and of course the father and the mother, and everybody lives in this area. And if they have windows, these windows are basically facing the main street inside the insula. You understand that? But there was a main street between insulas. You see that far insula over there, and then the main street between. Then, of course, probably there was a main street where we stand, because that's a completely different insula right here. But we find something very interesting in this insula that we couldn't find anywhere else.